like this. My oh my, how it's Christmas in July. The thing that I love most about sports is the deadlines. It's essentially the gift that keeps on giving, and you don't even have to be part of the Jelly of the Month Club. That's what I love about it, is that it always gives us the gifts what we want to receive or we don't receive. We don't have any say in the matter because, well, we're not the GMs. We're not the ones that are doing this. The NFL is handing out lucrative, massive contract extensions, and we cannot wait to talk about that. And it is the end of July. You know what that means. It is the MLB trade deadline. We're going to find out if your team made the right trade or if they made a bad trade. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. And yes, it is me in the flesh, taking a quick break off of paternity leave to come here to break some of this big sports news that's happening right now. I just feel like it's one of those days, one of those weeks where there's just so much that we have to do this. It's only right. You know, my son, he'll understand. I'll tell him when he's older, look, took a little break, had to talk sports. Come on, you know, you love sports. You're my son. So with that being said, though, I want to introduce my co-host here today, Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
And Ed's going to really want to talk about this first topic. I want to talk about it, and I'm sure you fans want to talk about it. So with that being said, go ahead and drop in the comments section what we're going to talk about here and your opinions on this first topic, because there's plenty of opinions going around left and right. But the first fact of the matter here, first thing that we want to talk about here is the contract extension Jordan Love received just a couple days ago. 4-year, $220 million contract with a record-setting, record-shattering $75 million signing bonus. Ed, this is your boy. This is your team. I'm going to let you take this one.
Well, this is a rare case where a team can sign the contract extension on a player that has shown some results, but you see more potential in the future. And when you're talking about NFL contracts, that is the name of the game. How do you project a player to provide for your team, and how well does he fit into your building? And Jordan Love, he has been in the building for the past 3 years. Last year, he got the 4th year and was finally able to get on the field with Aaron Rodgers moving on to uh, New York Jets for 4 plays, and then he balled out to the end of the season. And this was certainly deserved for the Packers, and really the way the Packers operate. They operate through the draft. They take care of their players through their prime years, and then they cut them loose when it's time for them to move on. And this is just part of that process that the Packers go through on a continuous basis. Now, we're talking 20, 30 years worth of good quarterback play in Green Bay, which just pisses off the Vikings, Lions, and Bears, especially the Bears. Uh, so to have this solidify, to have Jordan Love be the guy that will be there for the foreseeable future, this was big, not only for the Packers, but for the rest of the NFL, putting them on notice that this is a Super Bowl open window that the Packers have created.
Yeah, I feel like this reminds me of a line from the movie Heavyweights. Key word today is value. All right. Well, the key word that Ed said here was potential. And I really think this is such a pivotal moment in the NFL right now where we are seeing a lot of lucrative contracts being handed out. And some will say potential, but do they really mean it? No, it's just they feel like that's a word that they want to throw around. Jordan Love has all the potential. And this is, if you want to compare here, is do you think CJ Stroud, after the season he had last year, do you think there was a single person in that Texans organization that doubted his potential? Not one bit. The same is being said with Jordan Love with what he did last year with this Green Bay team. The way that he took over, he took the reins of this team and he showed the organization that what do we have in common all these years? Oh, wait, we're kind of a quarterback guru team. If you look back all the way to Brett Favre taking over 92 to Aaron Rodgers and now Jordan Love, they almost like the Steelers with the head coach situation where longevity is always there. It's synonymous with that organization. And Jordan Love just showed I'm the next guy up and he deserved this contract. You are going to hear left and right the word overpay, overpay, overpay. This is not the case. This is someone that has so much potential, but it goes more than that, that they've shown you their work. They deserve to get paid for that work they've shown you, but they also deserve to get paid in advance for that work they are going to give you the next couple years. So Jordan Love, hats off to him.
And there's one other point that I want to add on to what you're saying there, Matthew. And the point is this is the face of your franchise. He is being paid to be that just as much as he is being paid to be the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. It's a great point there. Um, Jordan Love being on that list with just those two quarterbacks I mentioned is it's a great list to be on. Okay, that is a great list to be on. He wasn't some guy that just filled in for injuries during a quarterback transition per se, but this is a guy that took over because the other quarterback thought he was going to greener pastures. We haven't quite seen that yet, but Jordan Love, he stepped in and shined bright when the Packers needed him to do so the most. So uh, good job, Jordan Love. You earned this, and I can't wait to see you fulfill this contract for Green Bay. Those cheeseheads are dying to go back to a Super Bowl. So hopefully you lead them there. You know, I've always been a fan of the Packers. They are not my NFL team, but they're a team that you just can't hate on unless you are the Bears because, well, jealousy does take over. But
Yeah.
another quarterback who did get a big contract extension is Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. 4-year, $212 million contract, $43 million signing bonus. I don't know where all these signing bonuses are coming from. It's freaking crazy. But when you play in the city of Miami, there is a lot of Benjamins flowing there. So I'm sure that says it enough. This one is a somewhat of a head scratcher for me. So you already know kind of the path I'm going down here. This is a player that was probably what I've heard and his inner circle a couple plays away from retirement. This was a guy who had his head smashed in, who was concussed, probably still has his ears ringing, not trying to joke here because it is a serious thing, to now getting a massive contract, being a top 5 paid quarterback in the NFL is crazy to me. I do want to give props where props is due because coming from that injury to coming back the next year and still balling out, that is amazing because it was very scary, a very scary scene watching him being carted out in Cincinnati on a stretcher. No one wants to see that in football. Granted, that seems to be a pretty cursed field because we all saw what happened to Damar Hamlin too on that same field in Cincinnati. So it's kind of scary seeing that happen in the same year. But nonetheless, Tua Tagovailoa got a massive contract extension. Is this more him or more of the weapons around him?
That is actually the point that I would make more as to why Tua this was not a good contract. I I don't think it was a good contract for Tua to get this large of a yearly salary, and it's because as compared to the Jordan Love situation, Tua I feel and you brought it up already, is getting this contract because of the weapons that he has, making him look good, as well as the stat padding that he has done against sub 500 teams. Whereas Jordan Love, he went into the back end of his contract, back end of his year last year, against some of the best teams on their schedule and balled out. So that, and with receivers that he is bringing along, I would much rather have a quarterback be better than the wide receivers and bringing the receivers up rather than the receivers being the better players and bringing their quarterback up. Because to me, the former is going to be a much better leader for the team long term. Whereas if somebody gets hurt out of Miami's wide receiver core, whether it be Tyreek Hill tweaking another hamstring like he did previously, Waddle, Odell Beckham Jr., if any of those guys go down, who's he going to throw to? He can't get rid of the ball as quickly as he did last year, which was best in the league, when he's got receivers that aren't able to make the adjustments the way that top end wide receivers make adjustments. If you're throwing to lesser receivers, they're not going to make those catches. They're not going to have those rack yards. They're not going to have those extra touchdowns. And Tua needs those guys to fulfill what his stat line should show to get a contract this big.
Yeah, I don't want to say Tua's garbage or really say that he's some bad quarterback, but when you brought up the point of you want a quarterback that's going to build up his receivers, not the other way around, it reminded me of this meme that I saw online just this week of essentially a Lamborghini parked next to a trailer home. And it was saying, all right, explain this quarterback to receiver combo in the NFL, this picture. And I kind of think of it as being Tua and maybe Tyreek because of that point that you made of the receivers are really building up Tua versus the other way around. So I think I look at that and I think it's a good comparison, but I don't want you to think that I'm saying Tua is garbage. Tua has built himself up a lot better than he was in college, but college and NFL, as we know, is complete different. So I don't want to compare too much to those two, but he has grown into himself more. He is a fun player to watch, but that Miami team is the receivers. It really is. It's speed. It'd be nice to the second you call hike, you throw that ball in the air. Chances are Tyreek will probably come down with it because he's just that fast. That is really nice. But uh, comparing the two contracts here, I think it's pretty obvious that we're pretty fond of the Jordan Love contract and his potential in the future for the Green Bay Packers versus the Tua contract. Tua did deserve a contract. Did he deserve to get it that high? I don't believe so. So I think if you were to ask which player is worth the deal, I'm pretty sure me and Ed are going to be in agreement here that Jordan Love is the player that's worth that deal. You agree?
I completely agree. And I will put it this way. I can't name I can't name more than two quarterbacks I could have a conversation about being better than Jordan Love at this point and going forward over the next two seasons. Whereas I can have the conversation about 5 to 6 quarterbacks ahead of Tua
Mm-hmm.
over the next two seasons. That's where I see the comparison between the two. Tua is down the list from me as a quarterback. He is definitely in that, I would say, 8 to 12 range, in my opinion, as a quarterback in the NFL. So definitely top half of the league, but just not at that point where he should be setting the market for quarterback contracts.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
that's where I go with that.
yeah, I mean, look at that 2020 class. Joe Burrow, Tua, and Justin Herbert, three of the top six highest paid players in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
That 2020 class is crazy. But this next question for me is pretty obvious. I feel like it's going to be pretty obvious for you too, Ed, but who is the next player? I'm just going to narrow this down to quarterback. Let's not say player. Who's the next quarterback that's going to sign the next big deal with his current team?
It's not going to be Dak. Between these two guys, Jordan Love is going to continue to maybe not continue to set the market, but he is going to definitely get his worth.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very much in the vein of Patrick Mahomes right now. He is getting his worth, but he's not setting the market because he knows better. He has seen uh, what the previous goat of of Tom Brady did for every one of his Super Bowl years. Tom Brady did not uh, collect a yearly salary that was in the top 10 of all quarterbacks every year that he won the Super Bowl. Well, Patrick Mahomes is just fine not doing that. He just wants to make a living and play ball. He doesn't want to be that guy that is always at the top of the food chain as far as contracts go. So uh,
Yeah.
there are other players out there that are going to not. I don't know if they're going to reset this market because the Jordan Love shoe is the one that needed to drop for everybody else's contract to come in line.
There was one player I thought was going to reset this market, and I'll mention his name here shortly. I do want to go back and say I did phrase the question wrong. I should have said, out of these two players, which one of them will sign their next deal with their current team? And I think it is obvious that Jordan Love, after this extension comes up, he will then re-sign another contract with the Packers. Just like I said, they are a franchise that has longevity at that quarterback position. Tua, I just mentioned, almost retired, almost had to medically retire. That's how bad it was. So you're kind of iffy on his career after this contract extension. Do you feel the same with that response as well?
I do, and maybe not as much on the health side, uh, because that's obviously a concern when you're talking about a guy that was carted off the field with his nerves completely frozen in his fingers and not able to move.
Mhm.
That is always going to be a concern. What my concern with this is with Tua's contract is how are you now going to be able to pay the wide receivers that help him get this contract more than 2 more years down the line? Does he become a victim of lesser talent around him, a la Dante Culpepper? It's it's kind of ironic to me that it's the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Uh, when we're talking about Dante Culpepper
Yeah.
here, going from those wide receivers that he had in Minnesota of Randy Moss, Chris Carter, Jake Reed, and those weapons coming to Miami where you couldn't name who his best wide receiver was when he went down there, and he faded into obscurity.
Jeremy Shockley there. But yeah, no, I definitely agree there too with Tua. The it's not only the quarterback market that's being reset right now, it's also the wide receiver market.
Mhm.
Tyreek, who was the highest paid, is no longer the highest paid. He's going to want to eventually be back up there. So, yeah, the money, how's it going to be spread? And to a situation, it's going to be a little iffy. It really is. And so, before I mention that player I was going to talk about, I want to ask one last question with these two players for comparison's sake. Which players had the most successful career so far? And this is the question that's really going to be kind of a doozy because Jordan Love's only played how many games, Ed?
Yeah, yeah. And Miami's window for getting deep into the playoffs, I don't think they're a Super Bowl team, but getting deep into the playoffs is now. It is absolutely now. The Packers window for the Super Bowl is opening. It's not wide open now. So I mentioned in the next 2 years that's a benchmark for me. In the next 2 years, if the Dolphins don't get deeper into the playoffs than what they've been, they're not going to make it. The next 2 years for Green Bay, that is going to that is opening the window into a much longer time frame because of the way the Packers organization runs.
You know, this really reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Ed called The Internship. It's with Owen
Mm-hmm.
Wilson and Vince Vaughn, and where they go to be interns at Google, and it's pretty much the ending scene where the competition, you had to go sign a franchise up with Google services. And the team that was constantly in first came back all excited because they signed this big company. All right. And then you had the team of Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn come back, and it was just this little mom and pop pizza restaurant. And they were given crap for that. Well, they end up winning because this wasn't just some small pizza chain. They convinced them to also blossom into a franchise, and they ended up winning because of that the potential, the growth within this company, because they franchise. They don't have to be this big top tier company like the other team signed. It was a company that was going to be able to blossom into something bigger, and that is Jordan Love to a T. And that's why we talk about this potential with him, because of the blossom, the fruit tree per se, of how much fruit that will bear from Jordan Love's game. So you could talk future wise, but I think the present also says that too. And that's why I'd have to say he's had the most successful career.
Yeah, and when it comes to the NFL, I saw an interview with Jordan Love just yesterday where he talked about he thought he was going to be good coming into the NFL. When he got to this level, he knew he didn't know anything. He had to go year by year picking up the details that a top end quarterback like Aaron Rodgers that he was learning from sees on every single play, and how to adjust the offense to make those plays work. And that is part of a player's career, learning how to play at this level. And I really feel like Jordan Love has had the opportunity to have a more natural progression into this league versus Tua's, which was, hey, get out there, we need you. And that is the way the NFL works. You know, the NFL stands for not for long. If you're
Yeah.
not productive, well, Jordan Love was able to kind of ease his way in like a player should be able to, but most players are not. And Tua is a function of that. He's caught up, and with the players that he has around him, they've helped him along and getting caught up. But it's two different ways of doing it. I agree that Jordan Love has had the best ability to grow his career in the NFL. Tua's had a somewhat rocky career, if quite frankly. There's been highs and lows. It hasn't been as smooth as what it's been in Green Bay.
Yeah. And before you guys call me out in the comments section, Jordan Love also was part of the 2020 draft class. So that has to set a record probably for amount of contracts for one single draft class, probably just with those four players alone.
I mean, it was a great QB class. I
Yeah.
mean, it bared comparisons of the 1983 class, which there's a lot of Hall of Famers in that one, but uh,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with
Yeah.
these guys.
And really quick before we go on to the next topic, the player I was talking about was Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is going to be the next quarterback that signs contract with his current team, the Niners, probably for the highest paid quarterback in the league. I'd probably think it's healthy to say that.
It's We'll get to that.
Yeah, yes, we will. Um, let's talk about my team, Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's go. Russell Wilson had to act his age and pull a calf muscle, a calf little injury, and because of that, he may have opened a door that he didn't want to open, and that is Justin Fields now taking first team reps. And before you say, "Oh, here you are celebrating over some mid quarterback," okay, it's not that I'm celebrating. It's pretty much just laying out facts that Russell Wilson maybe regrets opening that door, possibly because he could lose his job. Right now, we have both these quarterbacks on rentals. We did not pick up an option for Justin Fields. He will be a free agent. And we only signed Russell Wilson for 1 year. He'll be a free agent next year. This is a make it or break it season for these two. And if you ask me, this is a very genius move on the Steelers' part. Which way to get a player to show their best version of themselves than on a contract year, okay? It's like that in every sport. You want to show the best version of you because you want to get paid, right? That's how it works, right? Even in the real world. So let's just take both of them. Let's throw them in a ring and let's see who comes out the better quarterback. Well, that's what's happening at training camp right now. This is what training camp's about, to see what you're made of, what you're going to bring to the team, the chemistry, because these are first-year quarterbacks with this team. So you're having to build up a new rapport, new chemistry with your wide receivers, your linemen, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Justin Fields did just that, as the last several days has built up quite the rapport with his receivers. George Pickens, I've seen some great plays. Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson before he went down today with an injury. And Russell Wilson should be sweating just a little bit, because although he's having a massive payday via the Denver Broncos, he's not guaranteed the starting job. Neither is Justin Fields, okay? But what Arthur Smith is doing here, and I think his brain, his geniusness on the offensive side of the ball, is a match made in heaven for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. And this is this is bias aside. I really like the Steelers' odds this year. I'm not saying Super Bowl, but their potential, because we have a new offensive coordinator. Thank goodness, Matt Canada, go serve at Wendy's for all I care. But being an offensive coordinator was just not your thing. Sorry. I know you were Big Ben's quarterback coach, but not offensive coordinator. Okay. But the Steelers have always been known for their defense, but we've seen the last couple of years, you can't just stand idle with a great defense and expect to win games. Yes, they could keep you in a game for as long as they can, but fatigue comes in, you have injuries, and we've seen that. The offense needs to step it up. I don't care if we sign Patrick Queen this year, although I like the signing. You can't rely on your defense every single game. So I love the fact that Justin Fields and Russell Wilson are duking this out. And I'm really excited to see in the end who wins. I'm sure Russell Wilson will still be the starter week 1, but I think what I'm hearing right now is Justin Fields will be in the mix before the middle of the season. So it all has to play out. That's just how it works. But I really do like the Steelers' chances this year.
Yeah, and one thing that I'm going to ask you, Matthew, about Justin Fields being in the Steelers offense is he is, to this point, has made the spectacular look easy. What he has made look difficult is the easy. So, given Arthur Smith's offense of being a little more play action, being a little more downhill, is that really going to, how well does that fit with what Fields does? And can you see him making the leap to get himself under control enough to bring this offense forward?
Absolutely. The thing that I think Arthur Smith is going to do that's actually going to help Justin Fields is the Pittsburgh Steelers way, and that is establish the run game. When you establish the run game, we know the linebackers move according to that. Justin Fields in Chicago was just a one-man crew. He had no offensive line. He was just running out there for dear life. And because they couldn't establish anything. I think with the Steelers, if they could establish a run game, having the play action and having a quarterback with great legs can open up so much more, and he won't have to overthink. Justin Fields, you're gonna love the comparison, Cordell Stewart esque, because he can do it all. I and we may see it all this year, especially with this new kickoff rule, because we've heard his name being thrown around a lot with this new kickoff rule, that he may be in there. I don't know. I feel like that's could be costly, but he's that athletic that would I be surprised? No. But if you can make it to where he's not having to run like a chicken with his head cut off like he was in Chicago, you're already halfway winning the battle with him because he is so athletic that if he could get things dialed in, he could be up there with the Lamar Jacksons as far as the athletic standpoint being up there. Maybe not, I'm not saying a top quarterback, but I'd say up there with Lamar Jackson with the athleticism that he brings to the field. So I hope we see that version of Justin Fields, not as a fan, but I think the NFL needs to see that because of how much doubt there's been on his name.
Yeah, when these signings took place, I went on record as saying that Justin Fields was going to be a slash type player just because he's too dynamic to not be on the field. And Russell Wilson would be the starter at least through half of the season to get Justin's feet under him because he doesn't have the experience that Russell Wilson has in the league to be able to turn an offense. So I fully expect Justin Fields to be on the field at some point. Well, day one, but maybe not as the starting QB.
Mhm.
But it depends on how long this Russell Wilson injury takes for for the beginning of the season. Because if Justin goes through so many reps with the first team, Russell's just holding a clipboard at this point.
In 2004, when the Steelers went on to win Super Bowl 40, we had a receiver by the name of Antoine Randall, who was a
Mm-hmm.
quarterback in college.
Mm-hmm.
And we were famous for the gadget plays. I'll never forget the Super Bowl. John Madden, after the Antoine Randall touchdown pass to Hines Ward, he said, "We knew there was going to be a gadget play in this game," and that was it. And I can only think of the amount of tricks and gadgets Arthur Smith could have up his sleeve with the fact of Justin Fields being on this team. So, in that further Ed's point of he could still be on the field day one, doesn't mean he's the starting quarterback because he's almost like a plug and play type of player where I think he would thrive wherever you put him.
Yeah, you brought the name up earlier. You invoked the name of Cordell Stewart earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, he was on the field day one with, was it Mike Tomczak or Neil O'Donnell?
Let's see, Neil O'Donnell. Gosh, you know what? I think it might have been Mike Tomczak.
Okay. Uh, so they were able to work that out, and Cordell was able to learn the offense and how to read the field and the defense from on the field as a receiver, which would be a great help if Justin Fields did that to begin with.
Okay.
Just trotting out there maybe as a third receiver
Okay.
or just somebody just to be on the field enough to be able to see the defenses uh, in person, live, and not just watching film.
Yeah, Justin Fields is a pretty big guy too. So he go out there. I think he'd do pretty darn good. So, but let's fly on over to the other side of the country and talk about the San Francisco 49ers because there's a lot of news coming out of their camp. There has been since the NFL draft and even before then, pretty much since they lost the Super Bowl, their name has been talked about a lot. And first, that's Brandon Ayuk. He does report to camp, although with the trade request, wanting to get out of there, he wants his worth because he's set to only make 14 million this year. And we talked about some of the contracts earlier. And as a wide receiver in the NFL, you're in the 30 millions now. His contract is essentially doubled of what he's getting paid this year. He wants his worth to be up there. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Niners don't plan on trading him, and he has shown up to camp. What more do you do? Who has the leverage in this situation, Ayuk or the Niners?
I I feel like Ayuk has the leverage in this situation, but he's not going to be able to uh, use it because you take a look at where the 49ers are as far as their salary cap is right now. It has the absolute most space under the salary cap right this minute at 52 million. With that, you're talking Brandon Ayuk wants his deal because he saw everybody else around him get deals because they're paying their quarterback pennies on the dollar. And then you've got Debo that needs Ayuk to open up his gadget play ability. So Ayuk has been used as a decoy. He's been used as a main pass catcher. He's been used as an outlet. He has done all the things that you could ask a wide receiver to do. And he is such an integral part of this offense. And not just in the way that you think Christian McCaffrey or Debo or George Kittle. He is that guy that makes everything kind of work because he has raised his level so much that defenses have to account for him. And that's where his value is in this offense. The fact that the other defense has to account for him no matter where he is on the field, but you're also looking at CMC, you're looking at Debo, you're looking at Kittle, you're looking at Purdy. There's it just makes that offense so much more dynamic having the wide receiver position be both have both a slash guy and a vertical threat guy. So that's where his leverage is, but knowing that the Niners have that much cap space, how much of it can he get for himself? And that is something that the 49ers organization is really having to have the conversation about because as you mentioned Brock Purdy needs his contract. Because as the last pick of the draft, there's only 4 years and there's not an option for a fifth when you're talking about somebody outside of the first round. So they need to get Purdy's contract worked out. And I do believe that they are trying to get Purdy's contract done and then sign everything around him. But there are other pieces in play here. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, such as whom I have said is the most important piece of the Niners offense. And who is it?
Trent Williams.
Absolutely.
It all starts out in the trenches.
Built from the inside out. Absolutely. Because Trent Williams, he's making 6 million guaranteed this year, 14 total. But Laramie Tunsil for the Texans is getting 17 million guaranteed. I I don't understand where this market came from for those contracts, and you you parlay the Ayuk situation, the Trent Williams situation, the Brock Purdy situation. Matthew, I'm going to go ahead and ask you: is the money portion going to close the window for the Niners?
Oh, it's absolutely going to close. There's a reason why that number is there is because they're essentially, crossing their T's, dotting their I's because the money is going to have to go to these players such as Trent Williams and Brock Purdy. I think those two are guaranteed. Um, Ayuk is going to be an interesting situation. I do think the Niners will find a way to get him a contract. I really do, but keep in mind, Trent Williams is 36. He's up there in age, but he is one of the key pieces in the NFL as a whole because we've talked about on this show when Trent Williams is not there, the Niners don't look like the Niners. The blind side is such a very important position in the NFL because you are protecting your most prized possession, which is your quarterback. And Trent Williams has some big shoes to fill as far as anyone that tries to fill his shoes, and they can't. They can't at all, and that should tell you right there that give this guy the money that he deserves. I mean, we saw Oregon Duck Panay Sewell get
Mm-hmm.
that extension. Tristan Wirfs will eventually get that extension. That will essentially set that market for Trent Williams, who, like I said, is 36. So, what is the biggest contract you're going to give him at that age? But you are going to have to give him some money, which will dwindle that cap. And then, of course, Brock Purdy's massive payday, too, which they will finagle how the NFL always does with moving it maybe towards the back end, signing bonus, you name it, to where it doesn't affect them that much on the books this year. That's just how it always works. But those contracts will be handed out. Trent Williams will get one, but Trent Williams is actually he's full in on a holdout right now. He has
Yep.
yet to be there, so he is holding out till he gets money, and I think it's safe to say he will get the money.
Yeah. And the 49ers, they do not have an issue paying for the players that they feel are necessary for their team to run. And that's just been how they've always operated. There are some teams that do that. There are some teams that just try and scrape by as best they can. Uh, but for the 49ers, they're just trying to figure out how the math works. That's all they're doing at this point, more so than anything else. Because if you even look at um, the receiver show on Netflix that came out a few weeks ago, I'm going through it now because I've been on vacation. I've been around my television set. Um, they openly talk about contract stuff during the middle of practices with the GMs, with the coaches, with how much better this play would be if I had a contract. That type of conversation. The Niners understand what they have. They understand what they need, and they are a full top down organization. Everybody's congruent on where they're going and what they need, and this is just a part of it where the puzzles need to fit together to create the picture.
You know who's struggling to realize what they need, and I absolutely love it, is the Dallas Cowboys. The Niners will figure it out. I want to say that before I talk about the Dallas Cowboys. But yeah, the Niners will figure it out. Trent Williams will get a contract. Brock Purdy will then be probably the highest paid quarterback here soon too. The puzzle piece, the question that remains to be answered is, will Brandon Ayuk be part of that? So we'll pay attention more to that. But now let's clown on the Cowboys because, well, it's fun. America's team, yeah, well, all of America loves to make fun of them. And me and Ed are two of them that like to do it. And just seeing what's happening right now is it's comical. This is a Dallas Cowboys team who did absolutely nothing in the draft, nothing in free agency, and oh yeah, they aren't even signing their star players. Like, what are you doing? Well, all right, so I don't want to say star because it's Dak Prescott we're talking about, but CD Lamb is doing a holdout as well, and rightfully so. I think CeeDee Lamb is kind of very similar to what we talked about with the Miami Dolphins situation, where he makes a lot of these plays and makes Dak look a lot better. CeeDee Lamb is a really good receiver who we all saw what he did as a Sooner and went down into and enemy territory down in Texas and is doing pretty darn good down there in the NFL. So CeeDee Lamb last year on his rookie contract, getting paid $17 million, similar to what we talked about with Ayuk. But he wants that Justin Jefferson money. He wants that $35 million a year. Is he worth that Justin Jefferson money, Ed?
No, he is not.
No.
He Justin Jefferson is an entire offense by himself.
Yeah.
As much as CD Lamb is a really good receiver, he is not the best receiver in the NFL. So he should not be resetting the wide receiver market. I like we were talking about before. How many receivers in this case? How many receivers can you put ahead of CD Lamb as who's the best wide receivers in the NFL?
Yeah.
And I can probably name you half a dozen.
Yeah.
Uh, he's certainly worth the conversation
Mm-hmm.
because when you're getting at that level, you're splitting hairs as far as their abilities and what their strengths versus their weaknesses are. I I don't see CeeDee Lamb being on the level of Justin Jefferson. I don't see him being on the level of Devontae Adams. I
Mhm.
don't see him being on the level of Tyreek Hill. I these and that's just three right
Mhm.
there.
Yep.
And those guys should be setting the wide receiver market, not CD Lamb.
Yeah.
He's really good, and he may get up to, let's say, 28, 30 million dollars a year, but not 35. He's not going to be that guy.
I think he'll eventually probably get 30. What he has going for him is consistency. Last year, seeing what he did with three of the major wide receiver categories with receptions, yards, and touchdowns, he was pretty much top three in all three of those categories. So I will say that he does have that consistency where Justin Jefferson has battled injuries, but he's still the best. He is still a one man show out there. He had Kirk freaking Cousins as his quarterback. That should say enough. And he's had quarterbacks when Kirk Cousins was hurt too. So Justin Jefferson is by far, the guy to set the market. I don't think CeeDee Lamb is that guy to reset the market, but I do think CeeDee Lamb is, yes, a top 10 receiver, and I do think that he will get a contract rightfully deserved, just not that Justin Jefferson money. You talked about Tyreek Hill. I'm sure Jamar Chase will probably get close to that next
Mm-hmm.
year when the Bengals re-sign him. That's another receiver right there. That's also ahead of CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion. But CeeDee Lamb will get one. I think he should be your priority over this next player that we're going to talk about, and that's Dak Prescott, who word on the street is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers' next quarterback next year. This is everything that I hear. You see everything online, people. You see it all, and that is one of them. And Dak Prescott, and I don't think Dak Prescott will be a Dallas Cowboy in the year 2025. That's how I feel. But I could be wrong. I've seen some things out there, and Jerry Jones, he's very unpredictable. But Dak Prescott, do you think at this point he just wants to hit the open market? Because, well, shoot, look what's been going on there so far.
That hitting the open market is every player's dream, especially when you have leverage of being the level of quarterback that you're at. Dak is, in my mind, in that Tua range. He's got he's got definitely skills. He's got talent. He's got leadership. He's got these things, but there's just he's not that guy. He's not the guy to reset everything. And as much as Cowboy fans want to say Dak Prescott's the best thing since sliced bread, uh, which they said about Tony Romo, they said about Danny White, they said about
Yes.
Steve Pallor, for goodness sake. Uh, Dak is not a guy that I think gets the Jordan Love type of money going forward. But the other part of it is Jerry Jones, like you said, he went in the offseason and said they're all in. Well, how about going all out for all these players? This this Dak Prescott situation just highlights and puts a big spotlight on the way that Jerry Jones runs the organization. And it's a family business in his mind. I don't see Robert Kraft's son as the president of operations. I I don't see John Lynch's cousin running uh, the PR room. That's not what these other organizations do. But that's the way that Jerry Jones runs it, and that becomes a problem when you've got an owner that's like, "Well, show me that you can win the Super Bowl and I'll pay you." Well, they can't win the Super Bowl if you don't pay the money to get the talent around them to win the Super Bowl. It's it's a two-way street here, Jerry.
Yeah.
In the days before the salary cap, no problem. You could spend all the money you want. Who cares? But now with the salary cap being in place for, I want to say 30 years now, 30 years we've been dealing with this, and Jerry still doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. And there is a word that comes to mind when you talk about how he spends on his players, and I can't quite put my finger on it. Um, what 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 would you say about an owner that doesn't spend any money on his players? What?
Probably say a cheap ass.
That's it.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones is a cheap ass.
Yeah.
If you look at the roster for the Cowboys this season, it is the second lowest money spent on the roster for a single season in the NFL. If you look at 2025, it is the lowest. If you look at 2026, it's the lowest. And you cannot win Super Bowls like that. That's just not going to be how it works. You have to hit on every draft pick. And you said it before, Matthew, their draft was horrendous. They did not get anything that they truly needed to fill those their weaknesses on that roster. And they just had their defensive end, Sam Williams, go down with an ACL MCL tear.
Yeah.
So he's gone for the season, and they were going to rely on him to get the pressures around to offset from Micah Parsons. So that's a problem. And until Jerry Jones gives control of the organization and runs it like a business the way that he says it is, then the Cowboys will never win a Super Bowl. It is not a mom and pop shop. This is a fully functioning, multi-level business organization, and Jerry Jones needs to run it that way.
Hey, I mean, Bill Belichick brought in his son to run the defense.
Who's
But
still running safeties in New England, by the
yes,
way.
he is. But yeah, Jerry Jones needs to take a step back from how this is, because clearly it's not working. How many playoff wins do you have in the last 20 years? I mean, it's the recipe is old. You need to spice it up, and he's refusing to do that. He's bringing in a lot of money. I mean, if you watch any home game on a Sunday in Dallas and Arlington, you will see the second those doors open, you will see people running in there like it's Black Friday. They make a lot of money there, but who sees it? The players sure don't. They don't see it at all. And Jerry sees it. Jerry pockets it, and he's enjoying it. His life is set. He's buying big old $350 million yachts. I've seen it, but players don't see it. So it's kind of sad what he's doing, because there are players that rightfully deserve a good paycheck, and they're not giving it to them. They're not outsourcing. They're counting on the draft, which they've had some good drafts. They've gotten some good players out of the drafts, but not recently, not this year. And they're in uncharted territories, if you ask me. I don't know if they got their eye on maybe a quarterback coming out of a UT next year, but
Or Colorado.
you can't put all your marbles in the basket and hope that you're going to win, because you're not always going to win. But interested to see what happens there. I love trashing on the Cowboys. It's probably one of my favorite hobbies to do. But Jerry Jones has to get it together. He needs to stop being a cheap ass if he wants to win.
100%. And there's a local radio personality from where I'm from that says that if the Cowboys win a Super Bowl with Jerry Jones in charge, he will walk to Dallas. And he's had that bet going for 30 years and hasn't had made a single step.
Yep. They're gonna have to get the band back together, bring Emmitt Smith back, maybe. But Jerry Jones, as long as he's in the way, they just aren't gonna have that success. He is stopping that team from having the success they could have.
Absolutely.
But I talk about decisions for the better, and there's nothing better than the trade deadline for the MLB to really make that happen. This is where it's almost kind of you're make it or break it for teams. You bring on rentals, you bring on players for long term, hoping to not only better the season, win a World Series, but maybe next year rinse and repeat. And we always see some crazy moves happen at the trade deadline, and we're going to talk about maybe a couple of those deals there. But I want to talk about this second half now that we know some of these trades that have taken place. Teams that may come out of nowhere, maybe because of the trades, or maybe just because they're on a nice winning streak right now, that will make the playoffs or possibly win a division. And I'll start with you. Or no, actually, I'll take this and then I'll have you piggyback off of me.
Sure.
There are two teams right now, and one of them maybe it's not too much of a surprise for you, but I'm going to go one AL, one NL. AL, let's say the Kansas City Royals. Right now, they're about 3 games back. Uh, as far as division wise, I want to say maybe 3 or 7. I can't remember. For some reason, we get those numbers mixed up, but they're right there on the wild card spot. I think the Royals are making all the right moves right now, and they're doing it very quietly, in my opinion. And I think they are a team that will come out of nowhere come October to possibly squeeze their way right into the playoff hunt, playoff run, however you want to say. In the NL, the team that went to the World Series last year, the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think the Arizona Diamondbacks right now are they've got momentum that should scare you. The last year we saw them creep up like an Arizona Diamondback rattlesnake and go to the World Series. All right. No one expected that. Was that on your bingo card, Ed? It wasn't on mine. I'll tell you that. Well, they're starting to look like this team last year. Watching Corbin Carroll's walk-off home run just last night, you start seeing these things kind of go their way. And now the moves that I saw them make with the trade deadline, I'm going to have to say the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to make the playoffs again this year. And I think they're going to continue to come out of nowhere while everyone's going to talk about the Dodgers. Everyone's going to talk about the Padres, the Phillies, the Braves, and the NL. Watch out for the Diamondbacks.
Interesting picks there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Um, I'm I'm gonna go a little bit different route.
Okay.
Uh, one one from the AL, one from the NL, since you set that parameter.
Yeah.
And not only am I looking at the moves, I'm looking at the strength of schedule going in through the second half of the season.
Yeah.
While the Orioles are the best built team in baseball right now, especially after this trade deadline, they are not going to win the division. The Yankees will win this division. And not purely based upon the moves that the Yankees made, which getting Mark Leiter Jr. In to bolster their bullpen, I think is a big thing for them. It's the strength of, they have the second easiest schedule for the remainder of the season, whereas the Orioles are middle of the pack. They're sitting neck and neck right now. When you take that Yankees lineup, who also I picked up a bat or two to maybe feed in to not having the lineup just be about 2 guys, then that's going to propel the Yankees to take over that division and possibly win it by, I'm going to say, 5 games. They'll win the AL East by 5 games. And in a similar vein, the Braves are 6.5 back as of this morning from the Phillies. They're going to catch up.
Mhm.
They're going to catch up and they're going to overtake, and the Phillies are going to be a wild card team again. Once again, the Phillies are a very well built team, but they are not facing the lower end schedule uh, that the Braves will face over the next couple of months getting into the postseason play. So those are the two that I have.
Mhm.
It's going to be the AL East and the NL East being overtaken by the second place team or the second best team built in that division.
The what was I gonna say? The Yankees, I definitely could see that happening. Actually, I do see that happening. The Braves, it's starting to make me think of the year they won it because you had Acuna go down with injury.
Uh-huh.
And then now Soler, who was the MVP that year of the World Series, comes over from my Giants, now back to the Braves. And it's like, oh, here we go. Here we go. And it's,
Traded for him for 2 years in a row.
yeah, just crazy. So, um, can that happen again? I mean, they've dealt with the injury bug all year, and they're still in the hunt. They're still right there. They're still one of the best teams in baseball. I could see that happening as well. To the point where I almost picked them as well as my NL, one of my NL teams to possibly win the division. Great teams, great picks there. Yankees, and great point on the Orioles because the Orioles did do a lot the last 2 days here at the trade deadline to bolster their team. Yankees did a little bit too in the areas that they needed to fill holes in. Jazz Chisholm was not one of those holes, but that guy is a spark right now. 4 home runs in
Mm-hmm.
the last 24 hours alone. I mean, there are certain things that just could be that spark that a team needs. I mean, the Yankees are still one of the best teams in baseball, but to further Ed's point, it could be that spark that puts them 5 games ahead at the end of the end of the season. So, but what about the teams that nobody is talking about that are some of the best teams in baseball right now? We got a couple teams out of the good old Midwest. Not only are they producing hockey players straight coming down from Canada, they are also producing some of the best bratwursts and one of the biggest malls in America, and that is the Milwaukee Brewers, the Minnesota Twins. I want to talk about those teams, but
Yeah.
also the Boston Red Sox, and we'll talk about them too. But the Milwaukee Brewers and the Minnesota Twins are not getting the respect they deserve right now,
Nope.
as the Milwaukee Brewers are atop of the Central. Minnesota Twins, they're right up there too. Obviously, Cleveland being up there with Rick Vaughn, but I'm not saying they're getting disrespected, but they need to get respect.
Oh, absolutely. And throughout this season so far, the Brewers have been right up there as far as uh, being in control of the NL Central.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in control this entire time, but nobody knows who they are. Uh, you mentioned you mentioned the reference from Major League. We're a Major League Ball Club, but nobody knows who we are, even in our own hometown. You know,
Yeah,
that's exactly what the Milwaukee Brewers are. But they're 6 games up at this point.
yeah,
That's a astounding jump from the rest of that pack, which you've got a lot of, you know, like 500 teams, 500 level teams in
yeah.
that division. Milwaukee's just taking that extra step. Uh, on the other end, with Minnesota, I I almost made them my AL pick because I see the Guardians schedule is going to be the hardest in Major League Baseball over the last portion of the year. While the Twins did bolster a couple things and they've been playing well together uh, and are sitting right with the Kansas City Royals. So that is going to be a race that I'm looking forward to watching over the next couple of months between the Twins and Royals to see who who takes that step. Are they going to catch the Guardians, who are having to do the extra work on the harder schedule, and or getting into the wild card? Does it become a 3-team race for two of the wild card and the automatic qualifier for the division champion out of the AL Central, which only leaves the Orioles and Yankees for the other. And then that just leaves one team out of the West. Who's that going to be? The Mariners or the Astros? And that's become a little bit tighter race than what most people thought, including myself, over the first couple of months.
Mariners bringing in Rosarina. That was a good pickup for them. I was just glad to see that it wasn't the Dodgers. Okay, but do my best to try to get through this without mentioning the Dodgers because gosh, I hate the Dodgers. But eventually, we will talk about them.
under under the radar pickup by the Mariners, Turner.
Justin Turner. I've always been a fan of Justin Turner. I just hated when he was on the Dodgers.
I hated it when he was at Long Beach State.
that ginger, but
Yeah, with the dirt bags.
I remember it feels like it wasn't that long ago, but I know it was when we were on this show talking about the Houston Astros. They got off to a very, very rocky start. Ed will be the first to tell you, as an Astro fan, was not fun to watch. They're where I expected them to be. And the reason why they're not the team that I'm going to pick to go is because I already know they're going to be the team that wins the division. It just feels like it is to me because at the end of the day, it's the Houston Astros we're talking about here. And I'm not trying to jinx anything, Ed. I know you don't want me to talk good about them, but they are a team that their name's always going to be there towards the end. But I want to talk about some of these transactions that happened. But really quick, the Boston Red Sox, they are the third team that we were talking about here. And the Red Sox have been on quite a tear lately. They are creeping up there. Unfortunately, they have to battle with the Orioles and the Yankees in their division. So I don't think that they're going to top them. But they can be a very, very sneaky team going into the postseason. They are another team that's just not being talked about, just like the Brewers and the Twins. So Red
Yeah,
Sox.
right now they are 2 games out of the wild card. They're 7 back of the top 2 teams, so their focus is going to be the wild card,
Yeah.
and that's going to be a fun. The wild card race in the AL, like I said before, is going to be a very fun race to watch.
Oh, it's going to be bananas. It really is. Just like this trade deadline was. Got to a point where I was seeing a lot of updates happening left and right on my Twitter feed because everyone waits till the last minute. It's just how it always is. We did see a lot of deals happen yesterday, and one of those deals that happened yesterday that I had my eyes on is a team that I talked about earlier with the Royals, and that's them acquiring Michael Lorenzen from the Rangers. Uh, the Rangers and Royals are both essentially duking it out right now for that wild card spot. And the fact that the Royals were able to get Michael Lorenzen from the Rangers was big. The Royals also picked up a stud pitcher from the A's as well. I think that the Royals are making a lot of these right moves at the trade deadline that I really think is going to benefit them. The pitching, it's we talked about earlier with football building from the inside out, the trenches. Pitching is the trenches in baseball. It is, and that's exactly what they bolstered at this trade deadline is the pitchers. On the other side of the, and I talked about the Diamondbacks and picking up Josh Bell, I think fits them so much, whether you put him at the DH or if you want to put him at first. I think that stadium there in Arizona fits Josh Bell perfectly. He's a slugger. He will have a field day playing there in Arizona and occasionally in Colorado. You love playing there if you're a hitter, and he's lucky enough to be playing there. And so I think that there were some big pickups. I don't want to say big. I think they were key pickups for these teams. And those are two of the deals that I saw happen that I think really are going to help those teams. What about you, Ed?
Funny enough, I'm gonna go with my team, the Astros.
Mm-hmm.
Picking up Yusei Kikuchi the from the Blue Jays. The Astros farm system is kind of light right now. They don't have a lot in the pipeline because they have made so many moves to keep the core together and keep getting into the playoffs and moving forward that way. But this move, in and of itself, they got him for three prospects, which three of the Astros prospects, it kind of makes sense. And they brought in Kikuchi to bolster the bullpen, which has been suspect uh, over the first half of the season. And keep in mind, this is a team that has not had Kyle Tucker in its lineup for some time. So they didn't feel like they had to move a lot and do a whole bunch of these extra moves the way that the Orioles did or the Dodgers did in this massive 3-team parlay trade that they wound up doing. No, the Astros stuck with what they have. They know what they have. They just needed a little bit of help on the uh, in the bullpen, and they were able to get it. I give kudos to the Rays and I give kudos to the Blue Jays for knowing that they are not going to be contenders and for players that they brought in to help them be contenders. So sell them,
Yeah.
get what you can, and build up where you can. The Tampa Bay Rays are one of those teams that we talked about the Packers being a draft and develop and work with your assets in house on in the NFL. I feel like Tampa Bay is kind of in that same vein on the MLB side
Mhm.
because they have drafted so well, they have developed so well, and they've been able to consistently be contenders in the AL East against those big money spending franchises, but doing it on in a far less salary prohibitive way because they do the work in house.
Yeah, it's kind of respectable. I know that they struggle on the winning side of things. If our other co-host David was here, he'd probably tell you that as well. But the Rays are doing, I'd say, things correctly with the selling mentality and garnish these prospects. I mean, I lost count how many prospects they got this trade deadline. I mean, they brought in a lot of young guys that will eventually come up in this organization, as they have shown time and time again. They know how to develop and bring them up pretty well. So kudos to the Rays and the Blue Jays there. And this is why, I was banking on you to say that. That's why I didn't bring up the Astros one, because I had a feeling you were going to bring them up, because I thought that was a great pickup. And it was actually a great deal on both ends. It really was for the Astros and the Blue Jays, but this was a great pitching trade for the Astros. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, and there's plenty of other uh, pitchers that got moved around because this was a real pitching heavy trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants pitching. Some people need more starting pitching, but a lot of people needed bullpen help, and because there's such an emphasis on the bullpen.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember 20 minutes ago when you just needed your starters, and the fifth guy in the bullpen was a guy that you've never heard of nor would ever hear from.
Yeah.
But now they are out there every other night.
Yep.
So I it is a much bigger deal to have a solid bullpen, even though the bullpen pitchers aren't supposed to have the starter level stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which has always been kind of weird to me.
Yep.
Uh, to to put such emphasis to have those guys on the field, but your starters need to be pulled for the guys that are lesser players, and that's supposed to be better. It's a weird dynamic that the MLB is going through
Yeah.
right now. We've had conversations about this before, but
That's why I'm not a GM. I can't keep up. I can't do it. It's analytics.
oh yeah,
But yeah, it was a very pitcher heavy. I mean, it got to the point to where, I mean, it seemed like every time there was a hitter talked about, they were somehow connected to the Dodgers Told you I was going to talk about the Dodgers at some point. I'm like, it's just greedy at that point. They know we know they need pitchers. Maybe it was just a smokescreen for all we know, and because they came away mainly with pitching. We saw that with their pickups with the trade deadline. So, but it just cracked me every time I saw a hitter's name, like Randy Rosarina is tied to the Dodgers. Why? Well, it makes no sense. You guys got some of the best hitters in the whole world, not just the country, the whole world on your team. Okay, I don't want to hear it. But I get it. Come postseason, you want that depth. Depth is very important. You have extra men on your roster, so that depth, depth could also come within your pitching too. So they did pick up quite the pitchers, and so did a lot of the rest of the MLB.
Well, and also keep in mind that when we get to September, you're going to have your September call ups be able to fill out the rest of that roster. And if you have already picked up a lot of these arms that are maybe sub tier guys that you're having to designate for assignment for just a month and go, hey, you are coming back up to the main ball club to help us win the World Series, but I just need you to sit down at AAA for a month just because I don't have enough spots on the roster right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
that's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Where it's opposite on my end. My team has 3 open roster spots right now. So we're calling people up right now. We do have some great stud prospects, but it's usually what you want to do in September, not July and August right now. So
Right.
it shows you that for the trade deadline, it's some things are looked at differently. I'm not a GM. I'll say it again. I'm not a GM. So, uh, but that's about all we have today, folks. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. We are more than happy to talk about it because that's everywhere we look. I mean, right now you can look on TV, your computer, your phone, your Twitter feed, and everything we just talked about is going to pop up on there in some way, shape, or form. So it felt like it was something needed to be talked about. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you guys tuning in every time. Continue to hit that like and subscribe button and share these videos. Let people know that we're around. We really do appreciate that. We just celebrated our 100th subscriber, our 100th episode not too long ago. We want to keep that trend going. So, and that all starts with you guys. So if you hit that comment section too, let us know your guys' thoughts and opinions on a lot of these deals with the trade deadline and, of course, the quarterback deals and the next big deals in the NFL, because there's a lot more moves to come. So if you continue to do that, we'd appreciate that. But until next time, guys, we are rounding third and we are headed for home.